Okay, I wanted to take some time and make a video to practice um, identifying the protons, neutrons, and electrons for both isotopes and ions. First off, remember that isotopes have different numbers of neutrons, and ions have different electrons. And one of the first things to understand is how they write the symbol for an isotope. A common isotope is called carbon 14. Big letters, big numbers. All right, so carbon 14, 14 is the new mass of that carbon atom. Ions, however, we'll say oxygen, has its charge number as being very small in the upper right hand corner. So oxygen with a -2 charge, the -2 would be there. Okay, so it's superscripted. So they write it that way because if they wrote oxygen with a -2 sign like that, well, that'll make the ions and the isotopes look exactly alike. All right, so they don't do it that way. So here is an ion, and that is an isotope. All right, so now let's take that carbon 14 as an example. So carbon 14 is still a carbon, so that means it will have 6 protons. It will have 6 electrons because the charge is neutral, right? And so the positives and the negatives are equal. But now the mass is 14, okay, instead of it normally being 12. So since the mass is 14, we're going to subtract the 8 protons. We end up, or I'm sorry, the 6 protons, and we end up with 8 neutrons. All right, so carbon 14 will have 6 protons, 8 neutrons in its nucleus. So it will have an extra 2 neutrons. Okay, and so that will change its mass from 12 to 14. Let's do one more quick one. Let's say, I don't know, fluorine with a fluorine, and we'll say 22. I don't even know if this isotope exists. I'm just making it up. All right, so since it's a fluorine, okay, it's going to have nine protons, and it will have 9 electrons. And to figure out the mass, the neutrons, we take the mass, subtract the 9 protons, and we end up with 13. And so it will have 13 neutrons. Okay? All right, so I think that's pretty straightforward. Let's move on to ions because that gets a little bit trickier. All right? So looking at the periodic table, you'll notice that in the upper right-hand corner of each tile, you might see a positive or negative number or a bunch of positive and negative numbers. All right, those represent the common ions for that element. So oxygen has a common ion of -2. Okay, so it's still an oxygen, so it's going to have 8 protons. Okay, it has a mass of 16. 16 minus 8 is 8, so it's going to have 8 neutrons. And so now normally it would have 8 electrons, but it has a -2 charge. So it doesn't have the same amount of protons and electrons. It's more negative. It's 2 more negative. So since it's 2 more negative, it has 2 extra electrons. So it doesn't have 8 electrons. It has 10 electrons. Okay, and to check that, we can just combine it, do the math, and combine positive 8 and negative 10, and that gives you a negative 2 charge. Okay, we'll do one more that's a little bit trickier, and we'll do boron. So boron, and we can see here that a common ion is positive 3. Boron has 5 protons. Okay, and since its mass is 11 minus the 5 protons, it will have 6 neutrons. And again, normally it would normally have 5 electrons, but look at the charge now. The charge isn't negative, it's positive. All right. So since it's positive, it's kind of different because we can't add protons to it to make it more positive. If we added 3 protons to it, then it wouldn't be a boron anymore. It would have 8 protons, right? 3 plus the 5 is 8, and that would make it an oxygen. All right, so we're not changing the element. So the protons stay the same. The way to make it more positive is to take away negative, to subtract electrons. So instead of there being 5 electrons, we're going to have 3 less. So it'll be 2 electrons. All right, not 5. So again, if we did the math, right, positive 5 combined with a negative 2, that is going to equal a positive 3 charge. And that's what we have here. So this is the trickiest part, I'd say, for kids to understand, that in order to get a positive charge, we have to subtract electrons. We have to subtract negatives. And it's the same thing in math, right? If it's 5 minus a negative 2, right, that would equal the same as 5 plus 2, and that will equal 7. All right, so when you subtract a negative, you are making it more positive. All right, I know this was kind of a long one. Hope you stuck with it, and hope it helped.